Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Danielle's Denture Diaries. I am Danielle, and today I'm going to be making several videos. So if you see a couple videos that I'm wearing something that looks exactly the same, nothing else changes, it's because I really do want to catch up on quite a handful of things. So for those of you who have been watching and keeping up with my journey, thank you so much for sticking this far with me as far as all the changes, the inconsistency, the learning to edit again, that kind of stuff. I am working on all of that. I would like to make intros again like I used to. I know that I've been doing a lot of like blurbs and things like that on the bottom of the screen and sometimes through my entire face, and that's okay. And we will eventually get back to making dad jokes, mom jokes, and all the other kinds of jokes. So I do apologize for the crazy lighting. I have my ring light on right now. The sun is out and we're in summer. So anyway, if I sound different and I have to wipe my nose here and there, it is because I think I have a head cold. So that's all great. And what better way to remedy a head cold than to eat yet another McDonald's cheeseburger, have water. I did not drink all of this by myself. I'm not very good at drinking water. And some caffeine. Anyway, that's where we are today. And what we're going to be talking about today, as long as you guys can hang out with me, is that therapy piece. So for anyone who did not watch the video, there was an Instagram post that had caught my eye, and I do want to go back and see if I can find it. If/when I find it, I would like to have them acknowledged here because they made such a fair point that when you think about the fact that you are wearing a denture and you went through an extraction process, it's really strange, at least for me personally, and yet it seems as though it should be apparent that your denture is a prosthetic. They are prosthetics, and along with any other extraction, amputation, things like that, and I'm not negating from one situation or another, it's the simple fact of overall you've lost or had a part of yourself physically removed and you've had to install or start utilizing something man-made in order to replace that part of you, or in order to maintain a physical need like eating or talking or being socially acceptable. And I say that very loosely because for those of you who are new here, I talk about my early denture dental journey way back when I was a teenager, and one of the things that was thrown around a lot as I was growing up was that she needs to be socially acceptable. She needs to be able to have healthy relationships without feeling self-conscious. She needs to be able to have a job. She needs to be able to talk. And as a younger child, teenager, adult, it never really quite dawned on me until after I went through my extraction process and getting dentures that I was like, wow, like that was a very heavy thing to say, and whether I acknowledged it or not, it did impact me because I felt as though I were socially unacceptable. I was at one point unlovable, and I'm not saying that that was okay to feel or perceive myself that way. But as a younger adult and going through some of my personal family and other issues, it was never told to me that, hey, yes, you have a medical condition, and yes, we are going to go through some processes and some things that most people don't have to at your age, and that's okay. You are still loved, you are still important, and you still matter. You are no less of a human than the next person or the person after or before that. So just clarifying that. So something that, I'm sorry, I have my window open and I think it's making my face a little itchy because allergies and stuff, because it's summer where I am now. Finally. But the Instagram post was making a point that when you have your teeth removed, where is the speech therapy? Where is the therapy for the mental and emotional toll it can and may take on you? Not saying that this happens to everybody. Looking at you, Cheryl, because I know you always make a point to say that, you're very confident and very strong in your decisions that you had made. Not everyone is, and some people go through that phase, much like myself, who almost wonder, like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I'm going to be able to eat again and talk again. As much as I would watch other people do it, I was like, okay, but what if that's not me now? Like, I just had my teeth removed and I'm scared. So, anyway, where is the aftercare? Where is the follow-up? Where is the somebody dedicated to, hey, how are you doing today? Hey, how are you feeling? Name one good thing that happened yesterday and you were wearing your dentures for it. You weren't wearing your dentures? Okay, that's okay. Maybe we try today. Maybe we try tomorrow. Name something good then that happened yesterday. And you fuel on the good and you fuel on the steps forward, no matter how long that may have taken. Because everybody's denture journey is different. Everybody's dental journey is different. But it was just a very impactful thing for me, because you think about trauma. You think about people that have had a limb removed and they now have to have a prosthetic, or they choose to have a prosthetic, I should say. There should / is aftercare. Well, in my experience with dentures, and maybe this is not true for everybody, but so far, for me personally, the aftercare goes to the extent of, hey, looks like we need to schedule your next soft reline. When would you like to do that? It's going to take you about 15 to 30 minutes. Or, okay, if you experience any more pain, call us. It never went as far as, hey, how is your speech? Hey, how are you eating? Is your weight fluctuating a lot? Have you noticed? Have you noticed that you have a loss of appetite? How are you doing mentally and emotionally when you look in the mirror or talking to other people? Have your relationships been impacted? No one has sat down and really asked me those questions specifically. I do have people very near and dear to my heart, like at work and my best friend, who are open to those conversations. And for the people at my job, they were incredibly more than supportive for me to go through the process and get the dentures and everything. They knew I needed it. I wanted it so bad. So they'll occasionally ask, like, hey, I noticed that you bit into something today. Like, great job. Like, how do you feel? And they're there for me in my corner. The whole point of this rant is, well, it shouldn't really be a rant, but just catching a few people up if you're brand new here, is it really does kind of weigh on me. Granted, I'm not having a pity party, because I did manage to learn to talk. I now wear my dentures. Okay, this is actually really good lighting because it's not glaring my teeth, so you can't see them. But now I sit here today and I can present my story for you guys and help someone else. What I do think about are people who maybe they don't feel like they have much support in their corner, or maybe they don't have somebody to practice talking to, or maybe their other resources are limited as far as learning. So what I wanted to do is I'm going to move this camera thing over, and I'm actually going to pull up my my research so far. And I will do my best to go back, and when I'm editing, I'm going to post the websites down here for you guys below, so that if you want to read with me, or if you want to go back and look into it more, you absolutely can. This is going to be slightly by the fly of my pants, I'm not going to lie. But just looking into emotional, mental, psychological reactions to things such as amputation, just to or to add some context, when I typed in tooth extraction help or aftercare, um, it Google pulled up a bunch of sites for schedule a tooth extraction with us today. To go through a tooth extraction, you must have or qualify or make sure you're rinsing and you take a few days of no extraneous activity, that kind of stuff. But I couldn't find anything specifically for therapy on tooth extractions, dentures, that kind of stuff. So I backed up and lessened the specifics on my search, and I instead typed in amputations, prosthetics, and that kind of stuff, because if you and I agree, dentures are a prosthetic. So I am now on physiopedia.com looking at the emotional and psychological reactions to amputation. So gaining more context right now as far as what people may be feeling or thinking or experiencing once they have, for me in my case, a full mouth extraction. I had all of my teeth removed at one time with my immediate dentures placed and installed while I was still unconscious. So I am going to be reading verbatim here, and I will kind of back out and add commentary here and there, kind of like how we went through a denture history, okay? Amputation presents multi-directional challenges. It affects function, sensation, and body image. The psychological reactions vary greatly and depend on many factors and variable. In most cases, the predominant experience of the amputee is one of loss. Not only the obvious loss of the limb, but also resulting losses in function, self-image, career, and relationships. And in this portion of the very beginning of the article, it's talking about decreased self-esteem, distorted body image, depression, social isolation, being observed. Sometimes it may be long-term. And it says sometimes it may require further action, like psychiatric assessment in the case of psychosis. So my own take on it, or commentary, or experience, if you will, is resulting in losses in function, self-image, career, and relationships. So as far as function, you physically don't have your teeth anymore, and I'm talking about myself here in third person, I guess, but I physically don't have real teeth, so biting into things like an apple is not something that's very realistic to me or for me to this day. For one, I'm simply not comfortable doing it. Two, it flips my dentures physically. And three, I don't want to risk breaking out my front teeth. For anyone who knows the beginning of my story before I got dentures and extractions done, my physical front left tooth was knocked out. When I was working in retail, I hit my face on a metal cart. You can laugh. I laugh now. So having your teeth removed, it definitely affected my self-image. I posted a video here where I am talking with no mask and no dentures in. And for those of you who have not gone through the process yet, when you see yourself in the mirror, if you ever get around to doing it, it's heavy. There's not really any other way to describe it. It doesn't physically look like you anymore, so you have to overcome the new self-acceptance piece there, and you don't sound the same. For me, like if I'm really upset, passionate, or angry and I'm trying to talk and I'm not wearing my dentures, it's very frustrating. I don't feel like I sound as serious or powerful anymore, if that makes any sense to anybody here. You re-identify yourself completely. And if you're working towards a positive here, you find a new loving self-image. You re-identify yourself as, hey, I don't have teeth. I am now healthier for it. I am now better off for it. I now have gorgeous dentures. I now can do, I can now say, I can now smile, all these different things. So with the self-image, it's very heavy in the beginning, especially mentally and emotionally, and seeing the physical of it can add on to it, trying to see and re-identify into a positive. Career, it directly affected my career. When I first started my job that I'm still with to this day, I talk to people for a living, somewhat similar to what I'm doing with you guys now. And if you guys are familiar with the physical mechanics of talking, there's some pushing, there's some pulling, there's a lot of physical and muscular activity going on. So when I'm talking to people for a living, I would actually spit my teeth out. Sounds very morbid. It's the reality. I probably spit my front tooth out 2 or 3 times. Same with one of my canines a couple times, and it just got to a point where I broke down talking to my direct superior on site, and I said, I can't do this anymore. And she said, what can we do to help? And I said, I just need PTO for 2 weeks to go through a process. And she said, okay, say when. And I had never had that before. So I was able to go through with it. And it's done nothing but help my job. So as long as I'm wearing my prosthetic, my dentures, I'm great. Relationships are definitely impacted because for me personally, I at one point felt less than. For people who have their physical teeth still, whether they're pearly white, yellow, orange, brown, black, for me, I had to wrap my head around the fact that they physically have their teeth and I don't. And I felt like I was less of a human. And again, that kind of ties back to that socially acceptable piece that was instilled in the back of my head from a very young age of not having normal teeth. And it was very hard. It was very heavy to come to terms with the fact that no, I don't have my teeth. They will never grow back. They're not coming back. And at the end of the day, I don't want them back. They were starting to cause me pain. Thankfully, not to an extent that some people have had to or still do to this day deal with. I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky. And I count my blessings and the fact that I had to then let go of the fact that if my best friend, who's a female, a woman, she has known me since the beginning that my teeth weren't what they should be, to me getting my extraction, to me getting my dentures, and to this day is still my best friend. She knows, and she still loves me, she still accepts me, and she compliments my smile, and she knows that I'm much happier and healthier for it. And building and establishing that support group around me, and at the same time knowing that I need to have self-sustaining and always full love for myself. I don't care that I don't physically have my own biological teeth anymore. I did what I had to do, and I did the best I could, and I made the most out of a situation, and to this day, I will make the most out of this situation. And then to add a cherry on top that I didn't need, but I'll take it, I found a man who doesn't look at me any different for the fact that I wear dentures, and he has nothing but support and admiration for the fact that I take this situation that I've been dealt and I own it. I'm okay with telling people. I don't care who it is. I'll tell my waiter or my waitress, yeah, I wear dentures. This steak is very hard for me to eat. Whatever. And he just accepts the fact that, that's okay. You did the best you could. And in fact, you actually went and turned around and you knew the things that you needed at one point, and now you want to give it to other people because some people don't have that. And you can add your own story in to help people. So it's definitely affected my relationships on a number of levels. And it's done nothing but help set fire to my life. And whoever wanted to call me crazy when I said I'm getting all my teeth extracted and I'm getting dentures, I set fire to my life, and whoever is still standing in my corner, those are the real ones. So here we are. All right, back to reading. Psychological reactions to amputation. The immediate reaction to the news of amputation depends on whether the amputation was planned, occurred within the context of chronological medical illness, or necessitated by a sudden onset of infection or trauma. This makes me think of the difference between people who get dentures for a number of reasons, and I talk about this as well, where some people are born with a medical condition. Some people don't ever learn how to take care of their teeth, and that can start from childhood, diet, it can be from substance, it can be from so many different things, and I think people forget that, which means that the conversation of getting dentures, it doesn't always start the same. And that's something else that I want to pose for people right now, is that when I took that conversation and I grabbed it by the horns, that was me. I initiated the conversation. It never came to a point where a doctor or a dentist said, hey, we need to talk about this. I had to do that. Some people, yes, it gets to a point where a physician or a doctor is like, hey, if you don't do this, this is where we're heading. And it's the reality, and we need to talk about this at some point. So if not today, let's schedule a follow-up, or whatever that conversation did or didn't look like, I don't know. But for me, I had to call my insurance. I asked them what's covered, what's not. They told me, and then they referred me and said, hey, is this dentist office or oral surgeon close to you? And I said yes. And they said, okay, how about we schedule an appointment? And I said yes. So we scheduled an appointment, a consultation, and I showed up. I sat down in the chair. The dentist said, it looks like we are having a denture consult, so tell me more. And I broke down crying, and I told him, I can't live like this anymore. Please just help me. And here we sit. So the conversation starts very different for everybody, and sometimes it's very sudden. It takes you by surprise. Sometimes you see it coming, but you kind of avoid it. And then other times you just go head first and you're like, I can't do this anymore. I can't handle it. And it took me, in full transparency, since high school, it took me like 7 years to finally make that decision. I'm going to set aside my personal story because there was a lot more factors that play into it, but we're going to set that aside for now. So I skipped down a little bit. When there is time to think about impending loss, classic stages of grief may be experienced. There is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and then it starts talking about maladaptive coping styles. But let's talk about these stages. So denial. I certainly must have denied it to the point of not even thinking about it, and I dismissed it from my head. My medical condition of not having any enamel when I was born, it put me through several stages and phases of crowns and then veneers, ultimately at the end of my high school career when my face was at its most mature for the time. And as I went through those processes, I had nothing to really say in it. It was as simple as me getting packed up into a car. My parents took me to the dentist office, and if I was going through a surgery or a checkup or whatever that day, that's just what I did. And I never really talked to anybody about the fact that there was a medical condition in play. It was just, this is what I've done since as long as I can remember. And I remember very specific milestone conversations that did impact me mentally and emotionally for sure. But once I got my final set of veneers, I essentially ran away from home. After I turned 18, 2 days after I turned 18, I think. And I stopped having anything to do with it. I think I went back for one final follow-up because I could feel myself growing another wisdom tooth, and they confirmed it, and then I just stopped. I there's no real other thing to say other than the fact that I was young. I was most likely in denial to the point of just not talking about it anymore. I knew that what I had sucked and it was annoying and it was not normal. It made me feel not normal, so I just didn't talk about it. Anger. For me, my anger came out as when I would talk about it, it just simply wasn't fair. It's not fair that I would look at my friends who I had a handful of friends from different groups in high school. Some went on to become very popular, some were kind of the misfits, and I was always a clown, so I always felt like I fit in better with the misfits, and then I eventually was denied by my more popular friends. And it wasn't that I was necessarily shunned, but I could feel myself not being engaged into conversations that they would otherwise have with other people over time. So I started to remove myself because I was feeling insecure. I felt inadequate. I felt like I couldn't live up to where they were in life. All the popular pretty girls that would smile and they would talk and they would eat, and there was no surgery, there was no nothing that I knew of. And all of this is my perception. So keep in mind that everything I'm saying and experiencing as I'm a teenager, perception is your reality. And my perception is that these girls have effortless beauty and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm over here with barely their eyebrows at the time. I'm going through all these surgeries. I don't know how to do makeup. I couldn't really do makeup because I grew up in a very sheltered household. My hair was being bleached to the point where it was just like a yellow. It wasn't even like a really nice blonde. And my parents had put me into cheerleading, which they thought would help me with like my social life and make me popular and homecoming queen and all these different expectations. And all it all did was make me angry because while there were all these expectations, I have to also deal with these surgeries that no one's really talking to me about. No one's helping me feel validated as a human at this point. And it's not a knock to my parents. I don't think they were ever taught how to handle their child going through these things. And I'm saying all this from my past. The story has a happy ending. Bargaining is the next phase. Feelings of guilt and second guessing on things past or what they should have been doing differently, what should have been done differently. I did finally want to eventually look into why me? Why couldn't I be born with a pretty smile and just have to get braces like any other normal person? And why do I have to have my teeth pulled or tugged on and shaved and have my dad look at me from the driver's seat and say, your teeth are so scary looking, your real teeth look like It, the clown from the horror movie Stephen King. And I'll never be able to live that down. So I finally just wanted to know why, what happened. And this was around the time, at this point, I was pregnant with my son. So what initiated these thoughts and these curiosities was the fact that I need to know what I have to do to make sure my son does not have. Lack of intake of dairy while pregnant with me could have been a factor. The fact that she could have been drinking a lot of caffeine, stress, a lot of different things could have affected me. And this is all speculation. I am not a doctor. I'm not a specialist. I'm not anything medically certified. This is all speculation. But those were things I just started to make a point, like I am going to eat yogurt, even if I hate it. I'm going to drink milk, and I'm going to avoid as much caffeine as I physically can. I think I had a couple cups of coffee over time because I just really wanted it that day. And anyways, I now have a healthy, beautiful son, so. Ultimately, nothing I could have changed. It was something I was physically born with, so. Depression. So the fact that I had to MacGyver all of my teeth, once they started breaking and falling out, my beautiful porcelain crowns had been ingested. They had been knocked out and lost in a parking lot. They had been lost in a lake. I took my son to a water park with his father when we were together. And I was trying to, I'm surprised I'm getting emotional because we're way past this now, but I was smiling and laughing at a water park in the wave pool, and my 2 teeth came out and fell in. It's a big pool, and there's so many people, and I can't open my mouth to ask for help. And I'm holding my son, and his father went down under the water to look for what I needed, because he could recognize that I was like doing this to him, and he found them. And this happened a couple of times, not just at the water park. It also happened at like the lake. But these were moments that should have been precious and positive. But I physically felt sick and disgusted. It's really sad to think about, actually. Because, like today, it's a beautiful sunny day and I should be happy, and I'm out with my son, and I couldn't even smile and talk and laugh without being scared that my teeth would fall out and go into the water and be gone. And how am I supposed to enjoy the rest of the day? Do I just go home? Do I go home with a broken smile? And that was very real depression. And looking back at those pictures of my son as a newborn and an infant, I feel very mixed, bittersweet for that woman in those pictures, because she had such a beautiful son and she did everything she could to have a healthy boy, a very proud mom. And yet she couldn't really smile. Couldn't smile, was scared that her son would look at her different, which is a very irrational fear for a newborn or an infant, but I want my son to look at me the way I looked at my mom. I always perceived my mom to be so beautiful and so gorgeous, and to this day I look back and I'm sure that I embellish on myself, but my son's father, there is so much that happened behind closed doors and other things. It was, the reason I mentioned it is because of how dehumanizing it felt to need help finding these pieces of your smile on the floor of a pool. And you have to ask without opening your mouth, because I don't want other people to look at me and notice. So anyways, again, this story has a happy ending. Acceptance, which may not be reached until the patient is into the rehabilitation process. Well, here we are, guys. So, my acceptance was shortly after my busting my face on a metal cart and a tooth coming out. And the tooth didn't come out right away. It wasn't until the following day. But I'll never be able to forget that realization of, I just busted my face on a cart. And it feels like the front of my upper lip is bruised. The root of my tooth physically feels bruised. My crown, my porcelain veneer, is now mobile and adjusts and shifts just a little bit. This tooth is going to come out. the whole tooth, not just the crown coming off, but the tooth inside it, and all will come out. Sure enough, the next day, the tooth broke at the gum line, so the root was still up in my, not forehead, but it was still up in my gums, my jaw. And I was able to hold the crown with the tooth broken inside the crown. And I would push it in and hope that it would like suction or whatever. And that was when I started going to YouTube. I found a number of YouTubers, which I will list here and give massive, all the credit, every credit to here. These people helped me make the decision to go forward. And they helped me see that this is normal and this is okay, and I am still loved, I am still accepted, I'm still acceptable. And if anything, I can actually take my story and help somebody else someday. Maybe. I didn't know I was going to make my own channel yet. And then once I started making these decisions, I called that health insurance company. I went forward, booked the appointment, said I need it. We went forward with it. And I went through, I think, all these phases again, to a much lesser extreme and in a much faster, healthier way. And now here we sit at full-fledged acceptance. I accept this to the point that I will tell anybody and everybody I have dentures. No, I will not take them out for you, except for you guys. I'll do it for you guys. That's it. And I own it. I just own it. And then it talks about coping. So there's maladaptive coping styles. So these can be classified as overcompensation, surrender, or avoidance. Overcompensation can take the form of hostility, excessive self-assertion, e.g. by refusing help that is needed, recognition seeking, manipulation, or obsessiveness, e.g. by becoming preoccupied with smaller details of care at the expense of regaining whatever enjoyment of life is still possible. Surrender may take the form of clinging to the sick role and continuing to demand a high level of nursing care while refusing to undergo rehabilitation. Avoidance may result in psychological withdrawal, addictive self-soothing, or social withdrawal. So I don't think much more needs to be said about that other than the fact that these are not good ways to sorry, it's now that I've been crying and I'm sick on top of it. Down with the sickness. Sniffling. In contrast, some patients with amputations adapt effective coping styles that result in the form of self-efficacy. One of you knows how to say it. Just go ahead and say it. Using humor, making plans and visualizing the future, and actively seeking help to solve problems. And then it has a list that you can click on and a link. So for me, and I'm not saying that I am the perfect human, I am not saying that I don't have my traits that are otherwise maybe unlikable or less encouraged. What I do is I do make jokes about my dentures, especially with my coworkers. The most recent one was I work in a gym, and a medicine ball is a ball made out of like a really thick rubber, and it's weighted in the middle, and it can be anything from like 20 to 50 pounds or whatever. And I don't remember the exact joke, but we were joking about doing a relay race, and during the sudden death portion, the two coaches, my two trainers at my facility, would throw the medicine ball back and forth or something, and one of them said something along the lines of, "No, I don't want to lose my teeth and knock teeth out." And I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Me neither. I don't want to knock my teeth out either." And everybody kind of laughed and was like, oh my God, this lady is really making jokes about her dentures right now. But I'll make random jokes like that, and to me, it's just casual. It's fine. Taking the problem and posing solutions. So that's basically the overlying umbrella point of this channel and this support group. I don't really call it a channel. I refer to this group, this community, as the denture support community. The whole point is to take a need and fill that need. So here we are. Pre-operative stage. Among amputees for whom there is ample opportunity to be prepared for surgery, approximately a third to half welcome the amputation as a signal that suffering will be relieved and a new phase of adjustment can begin. Along with this acceptance, there may be varying degrees of anxiety and concern. Such concerns fall into two large groups: practical issues as the loss of function, loss of income, pain, difficulty in adapting to a prosthesis, and cost of ongoing treatment. Symbolic concerns such as changes in appearance, losses in sexual intimacy, perception by others, and disposal of the limb. This, to me, screams from the rooftop. I've never felt so validated reading this, to be completely honest. This is very validating for me because this is so real. This is wild. I don't know what, this is like common sense type stuff and at the same time wild. Most individuals informed of the need for amputation go through the early stages of grief reaction, which may not be completed until well after their discharge from the hospital. The presentation of the surgery by the surgeon to the persons who will undergo amputation also factor in the coping of the patient after amputation. For me, I'm not entirely sure what I just read, but how I interpret it is my bedside mannerisms from my surgeon were on point. He certainly missed on a few things, i.e. not removing this tooth back here. I had to go back for a second surgery, and it was the worst. I felt that pain down here and up to here. But the bedside manner, the thoroughness of the care, the fact that I could take pictures from home and text it to my surgeon and say, hey, this doesn't feel right, help me out. He would text back, my surgeon, I'm assuming my surgeon, maybe not, would text back and say, yes, that's normal, do this. Hey, that's okay, have that. Hey, come back in, we need to look at this doesn't look right. But to have that was very helpful. Still doesn't fully answer my question and why we're watching this video here with me talking today, but it is very helpful when the surgeon/dentist can take care of you and be there for you. Immediate post-operative stage. This period may last from hours to days depending on the reason for the amputation and the condition of the residual limb. Psychological reactions noted in this phase are concerns about safety, fear of complications and pain, and in some instances, loss of alertness and orientation. In general, those who sustain the amputation after a period of preparation react more positively than do those who sustain it after trauma or an accident. Quickly inserting my own commentary here as I'm reading. It sounds like if you were to compare my situation where I was born with a medical condition to someone who maybe they were a victim of a car accident, DV, or something like that, it certainly weighs the difference because I had that time to almost like say goodbye and accept, whereas someone who didn't have a choice, the matter was taken out of their hands. They have no time to prepare. They had no time to feel and react. They had to simply go straight into the surgery almost. So that's my interpretation. And again, being fully transparent here, I'm not taking away or adding in on anybody's personal story, trauma, feelings. I'm not negating, and I'm not lessening or increasing whose pain is worse than the next. This is just the simple reality of I had time and someone else did not. Most individuals are, to a certain degree, numb, partly as a result of the anesthesia and partly as a way of handling the trauma of loss. For those who have suffered considerable pain before the surgery, the amputation may bring much needed relief. So for me, the surgery, the pain was incredibly intense. I have a very, very, very fast metabolism, and I'm also a very small person. So one of the first things noted when I came out of surgery was that I had to have a lot of anesthesia put into my system to keep me under, to the point that I could not physically have had any more before it would have become toxic and had made me very, very sick. And I have had too much laughing gas before, and I got very sick on the hygienist at the time. So when I came out of surgery and they said that, it wasn't really news to me. I was not very surprised. But between that and then my drive home, not me driving, the pain set in very quickly, and there was blood all over. Not pretty. And the relief was that I could open my mouth, and even as I slept, I felt relief in that sense because nothing was going to fall out. But the physical pain was very real. I can't imagine, for somebody who has a much further along medical condition or infection or anything like that, the relief that they probably do feel after the surgery. In hospital rehabilitation, so this is something that I did not experience. The most critical phase and presents the greatest challenges to the patient, the family, and the amputation team. Initially, the patient is concerned about safety, pain, and disfigurement. And then it shifts to social integration and vocational adjustment. So, to me, this sounds like what I had to go through at home. Was I would text, but I didn't really talk. I would talk to my son. I would sing ABCs as much as I could, or as far as I could, because that was something very easy. It forces me to practice different vowels and sounds and get used to hearing my voice and having that muscular control over the prosthetics. And then slowly I started Marco Poloing my team. Marco Polo is similar to a Snapchat, but I use it on a professional level. So I would Marco Polo some of my team members. They had begun to ask questions about how I was running my office before I was gone for my medical procedure. And that forced me to speak also, while also reintegrating me back into my job again, because I would eventually be talking. Something else that I didn't talk about too was fear of complications and pain earlier. So, and disfigurement here. I was very fearful that my facial structure would change, that my lips would even have changed. By the way, thank you guys for hanging out with me for about an hour here. I hope I'm keeping you company. I was very fearful that I would no longer recognize myself, which holds true when I'm not wearing my dentures. Otherwise, I am very pleasantly surprised by the power of makeup, by the fact that I actually love my face and how it looks with dentures. My lips had not been fully impacted. In fact, I do overline them just a little bit, like I go right on the edge of my lip to give them that fullness back, and if anything, I don't mind drawing attention to my face anymore, so a lot of different things. Again, taking that positive and re-identifying to make it or taking that negative and re-identify it to make it a positive. No, I don't completely look like the person I used to, and I'm actually very happy with that. I feel like I've grown up a lot, and it primarily has to do with the fact that I have the job, I have my team, I have my son who is happy and healthy. I feel good. I feel like I look good. Self-love, self-sustaining love, those things. At-home rehabilitation. It is during this phase that the full impact of the loss becomes evident. A number of individuals experience a second realization with attendant sadness and grief. Varying degrees of regressive behavior may be evident, such as reluctance to give up the sick role, a tendency to lean on others beyond what is justified by the disability, and to retreat to baby talk. I am going to pose rainbows and unicorns here and say that I hope none of you are going through this. I hope none of you had to deal with this. And if you are trapped here, I'm going to continue making this series in order to help. This is not going to be the last video I make on this topic. Just to be fully transparent, if you don't like these kinds of videos, leave a comment, and I will start putting some kind of a label or a signal on the title to let you guys know. This is where I experienced something to an extent, but certainly not to this degree. The second realization of not having my teeth was just the simple reality of stating I don't have teeth. And that was a very heavy thing for me to finally admit out loud, is that I don't physically have biological teeth rooted into my head anymore. And then it took another part of me having to say, thank God for that. We don't want it back. We don't miss it. We don't love it. We didn't like it when we had it. This is better. This is 100 times better. I told myself, get over it. Go back, watch those privated videos from YouTube, from your channel, and get a grip, because the fact of the matter is you were depressed, you were not taking pictures, you were not smiling. The fact that I made those videos to check myself, I think, helped, because I look back at some of the videos I even did share with you guys in a way. I hold up pictures of my phone where I had taken out pieces of my smile, and you guys see the reality of what I was living with at the time. That helps me realize I made a good decision. It sucks. It's a learning curve. It's re-identifying, and that's not easy for people to do. That's why not everybody does it. So, anyways, psychosocial support. Single and widowed individuals suffer more psychological distress and difficulty in adapting to amputation than do those who are married and have a family. Particularly helpful in the adjustment of the adult amputee is the presence of a supportive partner who assumes a flexible approach, takes over functions when needed, cuts back when the amputee is able to manage, but at all times maintains the amputee's self-esteem. Peer acceptance beyond the family is critical in the successful adaptation of all amputees, and especially children and adolescents. Hence, a big reason why we're here together today. I had support in my corner, mostly in the form of my team. A lot of the rest I leaned on YouTube. And I am not kudoing myself. This was before I was a YouTuber. The credit, again, goes to those other YouTubers who I would just sit there and watch. I watched long before I made the decision official. I watched before the surgery. I watched after the surgery. I watched, to this day still, I watch YouTubers on dentures and their own journeys. And I think the biggest thing is to not baby yourself, but be empathetic to the fact that you did go through a trauma and now you do have some obstacles in front of you. medical factors, there's health, the reason for the amputation, preparation for amputation, surgical complications, prosthetic rehabilitation, and team approach. So a lot of this rehabilitation piece, let's actually go over that. I'm going to skip over the complications and potential complications because I feel those, again, are not relevant to this conversation. If you guys want me to go back and go over that as well, I will. I certainly will not be going over other articles today, but again, I do plan on making this a series as I continue to dig and find more. Bear in mind, I am not a therapist. I am not a licensed counselor. I by no means am here to counsel individuals and take money for it. I am simply here reading and commentating on articles that I find online, offering my 2 cents and my own experience, and some of my own wonderful, wonderful words of wisdom, I guess. Prosthetic rehabilitation. The use of well-fitting prosthetic reduces pain and post-amputation depression. Conversely, if the prosthetic application is absent or delayed, greater degrees of anxiety, sadness, and self-consciousness are noted. The crucial elements appear to be the integration of the prosthesis into the body image and the concentration of attention on future function rather than on past loss. I see this double-sided. This is double-sided to me because I agree people are encouraged to practice eating and talking with their prosthetics and their dentures. I am just going off of the assumption that you agreed to the extraction and you agreed to the fittings of the dentures because at some point you had the intentions of wearing these dentures, so therefore practicing with them only makes sense. I also side with people who intentionally leave their dentures out at first for a number of reasons, whether it be the healing process and their own perception or their own needs on a very circumstantial level, and also people who have the physical and mental release. I actually was going back and forth a little bit, or for a comment or two, recently with somebody who said that once they had their teeth removed, they did not wear their dentures because it was a weight off their shoulders. And I agree. You need to do things in your own stride and at your own pace. And we all need to stay in our own lanes. We're all driving along a parallel path of this denture, dental, prosthetic journey. Yet we all need to be mindful of the person next to us and respect the fact that, hey, I see you doing what you're doing in your own way. I need to do what's best for me. So, vocational rehabilitation. Restoration of the capability for gainful employment is an integral part of the patient's journey. Cole, there's a little footnote here, notes that amputees may regard unemployment as a denial of their right to participate in the family's decision-making process. It is her view that the success of rehabilitation efforts should not only be measured by return to income-producing work, but rather the return to the person of his decision-making abilities to choose the lifestyle that would be most fulfilling to him. Again, double-sided. Reason being, I do agree on my own personal experience that yes, my ability to go back to my job, my dream job of managing a fitness and health facility, that was incredible. And I remember the last few weeks anticipating my PTO in order to take my extraction appointment and go through my healing process. I kept promising my team I will come back, and when I come back I'm going to be better than ever and I'm going to be a whole different person. And I live up to that promise. I make a point to live up to that. To me, I am going to show my son and my family that I will find a job that is satisfying, fulfilling, is my passion, and I will be successful at it, and I will come home with my cup filled because of it, and at the same time provide for my family. That is one of my missions in life. I think that the vocational rehabilitation should also include things like hobbies. The fact that you need to find what fills you in a productive way and puts back into society, because in my opinion, and I'm not going to continue going on this rant, in my opinion, when you put into a community, when you put into the world, when you put into the universe and fill somebody else's life and somebody else's cup in some kind of way, whether it be retail, clothing, health and fitness, a channel, whatever it is, that is a gratifying process. And you're not necessarily always going to be paid financially, but you are paid in a soulful and emotional and mental manner too. I do believe in that. So I think that should have been noted, and it's just not, and that's okay. And then it goes into preparation, early prosthetic fitting and mobilization, interdisciplinary team approach. This is something I actually think I want to mention as well. Physiotherapists should consider referring to a psychologist if one of the following symptoms or reactions presents: expression of a need to talk, depressive symptoms, insomnia, loss of appetite, and hopelessness. Appetite, that's a here and there thing. I think as long as you get to a point where you are practicing eating and at the same time fulfilling your body with sustenance, that's an important balance to recognize. Like, okay, am I choosing not to eat because I'm upset? Or do I need to find an alternative because I am hungry and I just physically don't want to practice eating right now? I just need to take in food. Withdrawal, irritability, anger, unrealistic expectations, denial, suspected residual limb abuse. I'm not entirely sure what that one means, to be completely transparent here. I'm assuming if I whipped my dentures across the room. Self-neglect of personal hygiene, diabetic management. Risk-taking, trying to do too much too quickly. Anxiety, limiting progress in rehabilitation, can't or won't move. Regression or excessive dependence, and sabotaging your rehabilitation program or discharge plans, which, again, the reason why we're here today is because I so far have not come across anything for the denture community when it comes to a rehabilitation program, so that's why we're talking about it. And then it goes back into vocational rehabilitation, working with family and friends, group interventions for amputees, and then it goes into related articles. So I apologize in advance for the long-winded 1 hour, 20-minute video here. Thank you if you've made it this far. I appreciate you hanging out with me and talking, and or maybe you're not talking, who knows. But for helping me start this series of therapy-related denture topics. Again, I do plan on making this a kind of a series. Not necessarily that I'm not providing a therapy service, nor am I expecting any kind of a payment. This is strictly coming from the stance of, if we know in the denture community that there's a need and that need may need to be filled for other people, maybe not necessarily for myself, because I did come out, I would say, okay. Some others may have come out okay. Some other people may still need help. Some people may be looking into the process and not have looked into getting help yet. But some food for thought is things like speech therapy, that kind of stuff. Because so far, like I said, I have not found anything of the like. So I will continue digging, finding articles to read, more food for thought. Maybe I will even find, something I've been thinking about doing is finding speech impediment exercises and maybe going through some of those. And I'm not planning on becoming any kind of a licensed counselor or a therapist, but I can do exercises with you guys, and I will give you the credits and the websites that I'm going to so you guys can follow along and see where I'm at and what I'm doing so that you can also make your own decisions and formulate your own opinions. I'm not here to diagnose anybody with anything, none of that kind of stuff. I'm just here to facilitate more resources for help. So after all of that, potentially my longest video yet, if you guys have anything else to add to the conversation, any relevant topics that I could maybe dive into even more articles that I could find, or word searches I could use to find more related topics, I would be happy to go over those as well and look into them. Leave a comment. If you like videos like this one and you think that this is going to be a great series for you or someone else, or this is just a great addition to have into this YouTube community, give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to see more from me in the future, go ahead and subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.